Hi guys, my name is Nick and I'm back with another video, and today I'm proud to present to you my CSV injector and CSV extractor tools. So I'm going to first give a quick demonstration on how they work, and then I will give also along with that I'll do a quick backstory as to why I made them, and then finally I will kind of explain certain parts of the code, but I will be leaving the jar files and the Java files in the description so you guys can just look through them at your own leisure. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to show off is the CSV extractor tool. So I'm going to run it. So basically what this tool does is it will look through either one file or multiple files, and it will look for a specific column in those files, and then it will look for a keyword in that column. And basically what it does is it goes through each line and it checks that column for a specific keyword, and if that column for that line has that keyword, then it will take that line and put it into its own file along with all the other lines that match the keyword, and then it will output that file as a nice little chunk with that specific keyword. And you can do this multiple times to organize stuff in whatever way you'd like. And then the next tool I have goes in conjunction with that, and that's if you want to add certain blocks together to make them just for more managing parts, just so it's a more full array of tools. So anyways, I'll give a quick showcase of how it actually works. So first of all, you just want to click start, and actually just before I go any further, I'll just mention kind of why I made it. So one of my friends, and this was the intended purpose for it, one of my friends actually does ham radio, and he uses a program called Chirp to upload repeater frequencies onto his radio. And he has a bunch of these really nice CSV files with a bunch of different repeater frequencies on them, but they're very, very long, and he can't upload them all to his radio. So what you would think is that you could just look through them and figure out which repeater frequencies you want, but when it's over 1,000 lines, it gets very tedious very quickly to look through each line to get the lines that you want. So he asked me if I could make some kind of program which would organize that, or sort through them and organize them and make it easier for him to use. So I decided to do it, and that's what caused me to make this and the other tool. So the first step you need to do is you need to choose which input files, or you could choose a folder for the program to look through. So basically, you could either select one file, you could select multiple files, or you could select a folder containing a bunch of files, and it'll just recursively go through each one of those files and look through them. So in this case, I'm just going to click or choose the Arkansas repeaters because that's the one I have on hand. So I'll click open. And as you see here, it gives you a little confirmation that it's a valid CSV file. And if you have a terminal open, you can even get more information down here, like that. So then we can click next, and now we choose an output folder. And this is just where it will output the file with the lines to. And in this case, I'm just going to choose the desktop, just because that's a nice, quick place to access it. So then we can click next. And now this, we can just specify the name of that output folder. So I'm just going to do output, just because it's kind of the obvious thing to choose. And you do not need to add the .csv to the end because the program will automatically do that for you. So just put a name in and it does the rest. So we can click next, and now we can choose which column it looks through for the keyword. So as we can see right here, in the repeater file, it basically gives us quick notice on how I got these names. Basically, it will just look for the top, the reference line, the top line, and use those as your drop-down menu items, just because I'm assuming here that most of the times the top line is going to be some kind of reference, like saying frequency, call sign, all that different stuff. So just, that's a quick note on that. Anyways, so let's say I wanted some repeaters with a specific county. So what I can do is look through the drop-down menu and select county, and then it will look through the county column for the keyword that you specify, and that we will specify now, or in this selection key box. So I can just look through the file and it helps if you already know which ones you want. But let's say I want all Anchorage all repeaters in the Anchorage County. Put it in here. There we go. Click next, and now we just have a quick little box so you can review all of your data. You can always go back if you need to change something. But here we go. It just says the files to get lines from, output folder, file name, column selected, key chosen. And this was just more for me testing whether it can determine the Windows versus Linux operating systems, and so it does, and that's just a little box or text saying so. So now, when we're all ready, we can select extract data, and if all goes well, we should have a nice box saying done, and it gives you your output file, and all should be good. So now we can just quickly go to the desktop, and as we can see right here, we do get our output file, and if we open it, we can see all of the lines that it took from the original file. And as we can see here, these are all lines with the county Anchorage. And there actually are quite a ton of lines, much more than I anticipated. But, and if this is the case, you could always extract it down into smaller and smaller chunks by using maybe the agency or the description or alpha tag or whatever you'd like to further organize it into more manageable groups. But anyways, now I will quickly show off the next part of the program, which is the injector program. So if we go to, and quick thing to note with the injector program, the files that you want to manipulate or inject the lines into, it has to be closed, or else you get an error, just because it can't edit it while it's open. Anyways, now if we click run, you would just have the icon, just standard. Opening it. So there we go. This is the next tool, so we can click start, and now this will be the file that we get the lines from that we want to inject into the next file. So we can basically just go and choose the output file that we have. So we're going to pull the lines from this file, and then we're going to add them onto the back of the Arkansas file. So I will click on that, and this will just specify that this is the file we want to put the lines into. Good, and it'll just add them onto the back of the file, just append them on. Anyways, now we can click next, and there's not much to do in this program. It's just the files to pull the lines from, and then the file to inject the lines into. So then we can click inject data, and done. So that means everything went well, or good, and there should be no errors. So now we can reopen that Arkansas file, and at the very bottom of it there should be a whole section with those Anchorage County lines. So now this would not be a practical example because it already had all of the Anchorage lines, but I'm just doing this for example purposes. And as you can see, there are a ton of lines, and could be approaching 2,000 very shortly. So yeah. So here we go. That was a previous video, but it didn't quite work out. So anyways, now as we can see, it's basically the big list of Anchorage County repeaters, and it imported them all. So that is all good. So with these two tools, hopefully you'll have enough kind of to work with to nicely organize stuff to upload onto your radio with Chirp. I've never personally used it, but it seems like it's a cool program, and it's working for him, so more power to it. Anyways, now that I have demonstrated it, I'll just quickly do a rundown of the code. But as I said before, I'll have the Java files in the description, so you can just look through them with way more detail after the video is done. So this is just, well, I'll go actually to the Extractor file first. This is just one class that just opens up the other application. And this is just how I learned to do it. Probably don't need to do this. but it's easiest for me. So anyways, it just creates a new window class or object with all the code, and then it just starts, at least the main method that I wrote for it. It's not the actual main method, but it's the method that I named to start off all of the stuff. In this window application, it's quite long, as we can see here. But basically, we just have, it extends the JFrame, so all of the this dot whatever, that will have different parameters for the JFrame. So if I did, let's see, if I did like this dot, up, if it pops up. Anyways, actually I won't, because it's out of context. So as you can see right here in the public constructor method, you can do like this dot set title, set size, set resizable false, set layout null. You can just do all of your frame parameters with this dot operator thingy. Anyway, so this is just kind of the standard starting up stuff for the JFrame. You set your background color, exit on close, just kind of all very standard stuff, size, titles, resizable, all that stuff. And then it'll also look for which operating system you have. In this case, because it'll choose either Linux or a Windows system. So that's all good. And then up here, these are all just a bunch of the variables, quite a few of them, for all the different boxes and buttons and drop-down menus that appear in the application. So it's just a bunch of like the in-path, out-path, just a bunch of different things. I'm not going to go too far in depth with them, but you know, like the buttons, the labels, the text fields, the checkboxes, drop-down menu, or in this case, I think it's called the combo box. But I'd have to confirm it. I don't quite remember which was which. But yeah, so this basically, it goes first to the ask, and if I can find it, it'll basically go to the ask method, and that will start everything off. So there we go. So basically this ask first initializes all of the variables with their various parameters. And as I said, I'm not going to go too in depth, but basically you just like, this was a panel, so you set it to a new J panel, then you can set size, location, color, all of that fun stuff, which takes quite a lot of time to do, but it's all worth it. So then you have your checkboxes, checkbox, text fields, all of that, and they all have their own parameters, which I won't get quite into, just because there's a lot of them, and you can always look through them yourself, if you'd like. So yeah, just as you can see, quite a few. And then this is the kind of, you could say, the more important stuff. So basically, they all the buttons, they have their mouse listeners for different, or click listeners, I guess you could call them, for their different activities, depending what they do. And this is kind of just it just will take what would you call the path to the different files for later use. And here you don't really, you don't really need it. It's just I have property files that remember the last used directory, just to make it somewhat more user-friendly. Because that was actually a great bit of advice that I got from a friend at one of the clubs I attend. So thanks to him. Yeah, it actually does help. It is quite noticeable in just ease of use. But yeah, this is just kind of opening the property file, making sure it's there, making sure there's lines, especially the first time you run the program when there is nothing in the property file. At least not how I have it set, that it knows that and it won't try to take something from it which isn't there. So then basically we have our file chooser, which is that little box that pops up with all the different files. So it just basically, you can set the current directory, and this was with that property file, which is all nice and dandy. And as I said, this is just a very quick run through of everything, and you can always look more in depth into it with the files in the description. So this is just your file selection modes and stuff. Return val, that's your the dialog when it opens up, and then we can get the selected files, and if there are selected files, then it goes into this whole kind of process of getting all of the paths which are valid and putting them together into a usable array, because this is way more complicated than it probably needs to be, just because I have the option of you can either choose a single file, multiple files, or you can choose multiple files and a folder, or just a folder, and so it kind of made it a bit more difficult on how to work that all together. But it'll look for, see, now you have like your temp, the kind of the temp directories, and these are all just the directory path, and then it'll add them all together. So these are your temp files and stuff, and dir path, file path, and these are now the path, the different path that it has. And then it just keeps on going, and it sorts through the dir path, or the directory path, to get the files from those, and then it has to add the files onto the main file path to get a nice array for all of the file paths for the rest of the program to use. So it's pretty long, just had to rush through that. I'll stop repeating myself about the fact that you guys can always just read through it, and I'll move on to the next thing. So this is just your out, for the out button, and this will just choose the output file, and again it has its own properties file for the open directory, and it does the same checks as the previous button does, and then it basically will, now this only picks directories, because you want an output folder, you don't want to choose a file, because that wouldn't work, it would crash the program. And yeah, so it basically gives you your new file, and in this case actually it isn't a file, but basically you're not going for the file, but you need it just to then check whether it's a directory. It's kind of weird, but it makes sense after a while, and that's just basically to get the output path of the directory, and it sounds counterintuitive, but as I said, it works out. So yeah, and then, oh yeah, I forgot to mention this before, then it also sets the property for the next time around with the output path, so it just goes back to your previous output path, so you don't have to keep navigating, because the Java, the navigation box, it is nice, but it is also a bit tough to use sometimes, so it is nice that you can cut down on clicking around to make it all simpler. Anyways, then we have our run, and that'll just, actually, I don't think I use that button anymore, I'll have to get rid of that, my bad. And then, oh yeah, same with these, I'll fix all that later, but it's fine that they're there, it's really not a big deal. So then we have some action listeners, for like the reference column, and I think this was the drop-down menu. So this will just then basically set the actual reference column based on what the user clicked. And then all kinds, oh yeah, this was the key chosen, so basically whatever key you entered, it would just know to add that to a variable. And yeah, it's just a bunch of different things for all of the different parts. And yeah, if we just keep scrolling down, I mean, not much else. Oh yeah, this was previously when I didn't know actually how to check automatically whether Windows or Linux was the operating system being used. So I just had some check boxes. So if they're there just if you want to see them, but they aren't used in the program. Then this is also, this is another very important button. This is the next button. Because if you don't have it, it won't go to the next box, so that's kind of important. So this just basically increases the stages to get to the next page on the application, and this just has a few, like if stage is 5, just for different, this is more just to then extract, so you don't have to press enter after you, let's say like under the name, it would be pretty annoying if you had to press enter after you typed in the name. I know probably for a lot of people it's not a big deal, but I got some feedback on just to make it that when you even if you don't press enter, it selects the text anyways. So that's what this does. It basically checks if the stage is 3, and then it'll assume that the user did input something. It doesn't matter, but then it just, if you don't enter something, then it won't have anything to work with. So it's probably best to do that. But yeah, so this just will set the variable to whatever was inputted into that box, plus the .csv end. And then same for the stage 5 and everything else. And then this basically will just increment the stages, and then it calls a method called change, and this method basically changes the windows to the different things between, like, the input folder, the output folder, the name, all of that stuff. That method is responsible for doing all that. And then this is your back button, and all that does is it decrements the stage and calls change also. And then this was just, there we go, this just makes everything visible, and it adds the start buttons and adds a few things. And then the program shows up and it's all running. So if we go over to the change method, since that's kind of the next method that should be, or that is called. Let's see if I can find it. It's way up there. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So this basically just checks for the different stages. So if stage is 2, if stage is 3, if stage is 4, and as you can see, it'll just it changes a few of the parameters because some of the things change. Instead of creating new ones, I just changed their properties a bit and put them into the next frame. So it just does some little editing here and there to make everything go seamlessly. But the main thing is that it removes all of the previous components and then adds whatever components are needed for the next frame, and then it validates it, repaints it, so that shows up for the user to use. And then let's see. Oh yeah, this was just for what was that for again? Sorry, I wrote this a while ago, and I'm just now making a video, so my memory's a bit off on this. Oh yeah, so this was just, oh yeah. So this is the drop-down menu for the or in this case it's called a combo box, for all of the different columns in the program, and this is basically the bit of code that at the minute that box shows up, it will then decide what lines to take and how to parse them and everything. So yeah, and nothing much else in this is too important except the last stage. Let's see, stage 6. Oh yeah, and that's stage 6, and this is basically where it shows all of the end of the data, and then it adds the run button, and then the run button, if we, oops, my bad, if we go down here, let's see, sorry about that, there we go, it will basically go to the output method, and I will try to cheat a little bit, let's see, and I will highlight it and see if it gives me a hint to where it is. Okay, so it's all the way up there. Let's see. Change. Let's see. Find files. Where? No, it didn't work. No. Get data. Wow, I missed it. Oh. Of course, I missed the one method. There we go. Okay, my bad. So this basically will this does your last minute checking to make sure everything was specified correctly. Otherwise, it'll put out an error message just on the box to tell you what you did wrong. So it'll just go through all of that, make sure everything's fine. Then we'll call the get data method, which it's quite a lot of stuff. Where it will, as the name suggests, it will get the data for the program. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. Extract data. There we go. Get data. So this will. Let's see. Oh yeah. This does, once the files have kind of been. What was that for again? Oh yeah. This was then. This is kind of, it will call the extracted data but it will check if and then it does. It's once it extracts the data, it will then do the last step to give you the done page for the different, or for the good result, and that's just what this does. So it just extracts the data, then it removes everything, and then it will put out that the done sign, and then the output folder. And then ends the program. And you could have a system exit there, but if you want the box to go away, personal opinion, I just left it there, so then you can go back and do something again. So then the last method is the extract data method, and this is basically the one that goes through all the files and does the work actually, and this will it basically checks first of all for the operating system. This is more just for kind of aesthetic stuff for output path. Well, not completely. For a few directory things it needs to know which way the slashes go, because of course the slashes can't be the same on the different operating systems. But anyways, it just goes into a while loop, which just goes through all of the different files, and then it enters the file, and then it will basically go in its own loop, so it has its embedded loop, to then go through each line, and then all it does actually is it will just get the reference column, and then if it equals the key, then it will print out that line to the specified output folder. And that's pretty much it. Then it closes the writer, flush close for both of the different the input and then the writer. And that's it, basically. That's the finished program. And it's very similar to the injection program, just a lot less of like the different buttons and stuff, because it's like two options, or three if you consider the extract data option to be valid. But yeah, so that is pretty much all everything to the program. Of course, the code was definitely, I went through it fast, but you can just look through it yourself, take what you need. Doesn't really matter to me. I just more did this for kind of the learning of how to do it, and so I hope what I've done today has helped you guys with anything that you need. Maybe you'll use the program, and I hope it saves some time from otherwise looking through the file. But yeah, anyways, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like or even subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!